that it wouldn't put them in harm's way. There is no one who's been connected to the intelligence community or the military that doesn't say this is absolutely the most important information to keep quiet, particularly in advance of an attack.
Republicans and the administration, and you just heard Tom Cotton there as well, keep arguing that this mission was successful. They were able to successfully target and hit Houthis, that it's going to make the Red Sea safer, that there's not as much attention paid on that as there should be. But there's already been some knock-on effects, at least from some foreign leaders who have said that they're worried about intelligence sharing with the United States. The Liberal opposition leader of the UK wants to review all of the policies about intelligence sharing. Have you seen any material change in the way intelligence is now shared with the United States because of this?
Well, first of all, let me acknowledge, having an attack against the Houthis, that makes sense. We should be pushing back against them. But that has nothing to do with whether the details of that attack ought to be leaked irresponsibly, carelessly by this crowd. And remember, this was not the first time. We saw in the first 2 weeks of the administration, they inadvertently put 200 CIA names into the public domain. Almost every day. It doesn't make a lot of attention, but one of the Doge bros will disclose inappropriate information because they're either stupid or they're just careless. We recently had them post a series of real estate properties they thought about selling. It exposed a classified site. So this is a pattern of sloppiness. And is it affecting our relationships? Absolutely. If our most trusted allies won't share. And let me give you, I'm not going to talk about, I actually respect classified information. I'm not going to talk about that. But let me give you 2 or 3 specifics of how already this is affecting us. One, we've already seen Canada, Poland, and I believe Germany start to rethink whether they're going to buy F-35 jets from us. 2, we've spent years trying to promote a commercial space industry. When Trump arbitrarily shut off that private company's ability to give images to Ukraine, what European company or Asian company or country is going to ever hire American commercial space if it can be manipulated by a president? And 3, as they fire some of our, new national security folks, remember they just got rid of the top people at the FBI, the very top person who actually investigated and stopped an ISIS attack in Philadelphia and Oklahoma City. When they do that, we've got advertisements from China posting on the web trying to attract national security people. And if you've been let go for no reason, you're going to be a much more vulnerable target.
I want to bring in Anders Vistisen. He is a Danish member of the European Parliament. Thank you for being with us. So what is your message to U.S. officials, including the vice president, ahead of their trip tomorrow?
I think it's tremendously irrespectful that they are doing it in this way. Denmark and the U.S. have been allies for more than 70 years. We are a founding member of NATO. We have had higher casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan per capita than the U.S. had. So, frankly, to hear this voice coming out of the White House calling us a bad ally and wanting to occupy our territory is not only offense. We are not only taking offense to that, but we are flat out rejecting that Greenland should be for sale. The Kingdom of Denmark handle our affairs internally, and it's not something we would like other countries to meddle within.
Well, what do you think the U.S. interest, and particularly Donald Trump's interest, is in Greenland? What's going on here, do you think?
It's very difficult to say because we have had defense agreements with the U.S. on Greenland since the Second World War. Actually, the U.S. have decided themselves to close down bases on Greenland. So there's no question that if there was a legitimate security concern, then we could discuss with the American administration how to allow more bases or different capabilities to be stationed there. When it comes to the raw materials and other things you can mine in Greenland, Greenland have said very openly that they are open for business. But so far, no one commercially have had success in mining Greenland since the 80s. So if any American company wants to go up there and try it, I think they will be met with open arms. When we boil this down, I think it comes down to the fact that President Trump wants to enlarge the U.S. territory. And I don't think that's a legitimate way of doing it by taking it from an allied nation.
I think you maybe heard from our previous report what that gentleman had to say. This isn't funny anymore. I think when in the beginning, some people thought it was kind of a joke. What's the mood there, and what do you hear from people who live in Greenland about this? How do they feel about it?
They just had their national elections. They're going to announce their new coalition government later today. But what the most important fact I took from the national elections in Greenland was the 6 parties run for the parliament elections. 5 of the leaders of those parties considered Donald Trump a threat to Greenland. And the only party leader who didn't consider Donald Trump to be a threat got 1% of the vote, the only party that didn't make it into the Greenlandic parliament. And I think it says a lot that the vice president and his wife is not able to make a public program in Greenland. We have seen Danish media reports that people, even store owners and private residents, flat out rejected having a visit from the second lady of the U.S. And if that doesn't show you something about your popularity, I don't know what will.
So fair to say the people of Greenland are not interested in becoming U.S. citizens?
No, that's quite clear from both opinion polls.
From the White House to around the world, the fallout from the Trump National Security Team discussing airstrikes on an unsecured messaging app, it is seemingly everywhere today. In a federal court at this very moment, a hearing in a lawsuit brought by a watchdog group against the officials who were in the Houthi PC small group. That watchdog group, American Oversight, is asking a federal judge to order them to preserve all messages. They allege that Team Trump violated laws requiring all records to be preserved. We're going to have more on that with the plaintiff of that lawsuit later. But what's happening in the courtroom? Just one of the many after effects of this whole fiasco. Both our allies and our adversaries taking a very close look at what happened, why it happened, if anything will come out of this breach of national security, and what it all says about the state of our national security right now. For our allies, the revelation of a Signal group chat in which attack plans were sent out adds to a growing pile of evidence that leads them to wonder if the United States can, in fact, be trusted. For Canada, a member of the Five Eyes Alliance of intelligence sharing and already in Trump's crosshairs, the Prime Minister said that, quote, part of that response is to be more and more Canadian in our defense capabilities, more and more Canadian in our decisions. We have to look out for ourselves. Across the Atlantic, reaction to J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth trashing our allies. An Italian paper running this headline, parasitic, mean, and an object of hate. Vance and Hegseth reveal what Trump's U.S. thinks of its NATO allies. Australia's prime minister striking a cautious tone, saying, quote, mistakes happen from time to time. The important thing is when something like that happens, that you identify how it happened and put in place measures to make sure it doesn't happen again. The U.S. takes security seriously, and I'm sure they will respond appropriately. But there is little sign of an appropriate response right now. Pete Hegseth, who shared attack plans that nearly every expert say is likely classified, remains in his position. He said on Wednesday, I know exactly what I'm doing. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who added Atlantic reporter Jeffrey Goldberg to that group chat, also remains at his job for now. NBC News reporting this today, quote, a growing number of Donald Trump's allies are calling on the president to fire his National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz. Regardless of what happens, our adversaries, in addition to our allies, they are also watching with close interest. As reporter Noah Shackman writes in the New York Times, if you are running the security directorate of a hostile nation, savor this moment. It has never been easier to steal secrets from the United States government. Can you even call it stealing when it's this simple? The Trump administration has unlocked the vault doors, fired half of the security guards, asked the rest to roll pennies, walk right in, take what you want. This is the golden age. And that is where we start today with Chief White House Correspondent for the New York Times, Peter Baker, plus former CIA Director, now MSNBC Senior National Security Analyst John Brennan, and with us for the hour, former Republican Congressman and MSNBC political analyst David Jolly. Director Brennan, let's level set for a second. What was shared by Pete Hegseth in that group chat, well, we're going to show it again for everyone to see here. Does it look to you like it would be classified?
Absolutely. I do think that the amount of detail that he had in there, particularly since the military operation did not yet take place when he was posting that, would have given adversaries who had compromised any of the phones that use that Signal app the ability to take measures to prevent a successful U.S. military operation. I think has been noted, the Houthis are supported very closely by Iran, and Iran has very sophisticated technical capabilities. And if any of those phones, including the Atlantic editor, Jeffrey Goldberg's phone, had been compromised earlier, if there was some type of malware on there, the Iranians could have picked it up and could have alerted the Houthis in advance. So again, I think it was a mistake. It was a bad mistake that they had this type of chat. I'm not saying that using Signal could not have been a way just to contact individuals in a benign fashion, but the fact that Pete Hegseth put this type of detail in there, and then they continually had this conversation, I think by anyone's sense of what is classified, this clearly met that test.
Peter Baker, we are in day 4 of this story. It did not have to necessarily be the dominant story of the week. The Wall Street Journal editorial board pointing out in an op-ed last night, the White House is allowing its mistake to dominate the news for days and devolve into a larger question of competence. The administration seems to think it can bully its way through anything by shouting fake news and attacking the press. Sometimes it needs to admit a mistake, take the loss, and move on, which we are happy to do. That is advice, Peter, from a right-leaning board of the Wall Street Journal. Why can't Trump take it?
Well, that doesn't exist in the Trump playbook. Admitting a mistake and saying we'll do better, and that's just not.
Donald is pissing off all of America's allies, particularly. Yeah, we talked about Canada. We've seen examples from Europe. Donald is angering people both over his expansionist threats towards Greenland, which is still technically part of Denmark, which is, of course, in Europe. And the reality is the recent leaks we've been talking about are also hurting the American relationship. So there's really 3 things right now. There's the tariffs, there's the expansionist threats, and there's the realization that even if not nefarious, and I think Trump is certainly plenty nefarious, there's a lot of negligence. So again, you have the direct attacks saying, I want to conquer allied land. You have him saying, I want to put tariffs on all of our friends and just anger people, and not specific targeted tariffs, whatever. We can have those trade debates, but violating existing trade agreements to piss off our best friends in the world. And then also on top of all of that, you can't even trust the United States with your secrets, because the people who would have secrets about allies, because, Hegseth and Gabbard and all these people would likely know if the U.S. is doing some sort of military engagement or planning something, and they're working with other countries, or other countries are providing them top secret information using their spies or whatever. And all of a sudden, the conversations around the operation that is only possible because, let's say, France or England or Germany gave the United States some info. Now those countries are being affected by the dumb group chat. It's not only America that's hurting itself, it's potentially that America is hurting its best friends. And if these countries now have to ask themselves, in addition to the fact that Trump is a monster and wants to attack his best allies, it's like, even if we put all of that aside, he might just be too stupid to trust.